What's up, viewers? My name is J Squared 2003. Today, for Batman Day, I'm gonna be answering, in my personal opinion, who is truly the best Batman live action. Before I begin, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Turn on that bell so you get notified when I release a new video. And this is my thoughts on who is the best Batman. Now, before I continue, first of all, I won't be including the animated series because, one, I haven't seen them in a while, and two, there's been so many voices it's hard to know who is the best. Three, for the live action films, I'm only going to be covering Michael Keaton, Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, and Robert Pattinson. And if you're wondering who that is, Twilight Boy. It had to be said. And before you tell me, oh, why didn't you include Val Kilmer, Adam West, or heaven forbid, George Clooney? Well, they would not qualify for this because they would not win the reward for scariest presence. So, those are the basic rules. As for how I'm going to qualify each one, well, it's going to be who obeyed kill rule the best, the most muscles, best detective, scariest presence, and best fighter. Okay? Sorry. That's gonna start on the list. For the person who obeyed their kill rule the best, well, I think the reward goes to Robert Pattinson because, one, I mean, I never saw the Batman, I only saw clips of it, but from what I heard, he never killed anyone. So, so I have to give him points for that. For Christian Bale, well, a lot of people, well, for one, he destroyed that area for the League of Assassins, so yeah, there's probably a few dead assassins. Two, even though it's debatable if he killed Ra's al Ghul, well, you're gonna hate me for this, but I think he did kill him because Batman is one of those characters that even if a villain is close to death, like from falling, he'll still save them. Now, granted, he didn't have to save him, but I still consider that killing him. He also killed Two-Face by shoving him off the building, which, even though I don't think he meant to do that, that still counts in a way. And I'm pretty sure he was responsible for Talia al Ghul's death in The Dark Knight Rises, so yeah, I don't think he obeyed that well. Now, for Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton, well, if you've seen their films, well, you know they would not qualify for, well, the no-kill rule, because, if I had $1 for every time they killed someone, I'd have more views than my old videos. So, Robert Pattinson wins the reward for the no-kill rule. For most muscles, that just means, well, how big they are, like how big each Batman is. Well, For Ben Affleck, I would say that he he looked physically the biggest one, while for Christian Bale, in Batman Begins, it looked like he was the biggest, but then when you're watching The Dark Knight, I thought to myself, did he look skinnier? I mean, that might just be me, but he looked a little skinnier. And for Robert Pattinson, he did look a little not that big, but considering how this is his second year as the Batman, no pun intended, it's quite possible that he was definitely big, but he was still young, so he's not that big. For Michael Keaton, I don't recall seeing any scenes where he was bare shirt, so yeah, I mean, he was definitely big, but I don't know how big. So as for most muscles, well, I'm gonna go with Ben Affleck. Because even though Christian Bale was huge in Batman Begins, well, Affleck, well, he definitely looked the biggest, in my opinion. So, for biggest muscles, Ben Affleck. And just as a reminder, this is just my opinion. You can let me know in the comments your thoughts, but this is just my opinion. So, we're all entitled to it. If you're wondering about the shirt, yes, this right here, I am autistic. That's just in case you're wondering. Now, let's continue. As for who's the best detective, well, from what I remember, the Batman, the one with Twilight Boy, is supposed to focus more on his detective side, which, from all the scenes I've seen, well, it definitely showed that. With Christian Bale, the only scene that I can recall where he was a detective was when he was analyzing the bullet in The Dark Knight. That's the only thing I can recall. There might have been other scenes where he was doing detective stuff, but I mean, there was that moment when he found out who the Joker's next target is at that murder scene, but those were the only ones I can recall. Let me know if I'm wrong. For Ben Affleck, well, I guess you could say he was being a detective when he was discovering the kryptonite and trying to figure out what were Superman's weaknesses. Because only he knew that lead was something that Superman could see through, well, besides Lex Luthor, and the fact that he knew that the kryptonite could harm Doomsday. So that was him being a good detective. For Michael Keaton, his only detective moment that I do recall is when he's at that scene in the apartment when he finds out that the Joker, spoiler alert, I'm sorry, was the one who killed his parents. Now, granted, he was Bruce Wayne, but I'm still gonna count that. So, as for who is the best detective, I'm gonna say it was Robert Pattinson, because, as it said, as the directors described, it shows him being a detective more. Let's see here. As for the next one, the scariest presence. If you're wondering what I mean, that's just referring to the fact that which Batman was the scariest. Well, Michael Keaton was definitely scary because, well, be honest, he had some good jump scares, and it's a Tim Burton movie. They're always going to be creepy. So he was scary. For Ben Affleck, I think what made him scary was not just the fact that Snyder is famous for his dark films, but because, just like Michael Keaton, this Batman killed it, and people were like, whoa, I didn't realize he did that. And we all can't forget the warehouse. I think any of those people who survived are going to be having nightmares for life. For Christian Bale, well, I would say Batman Begins is when he was the most scariest. Because that's when he freaked out all the criminals. Because, well, in The Dark Knight, he was scary, but since he was still a rookie at the time, the criminals were probably not that scared of him. The same with The Dark Knight Rises. And, well, mercenaries don't get scared of anything. So Batman Begins, he was the most scariest because criminals were like, who is this guy? So, yeah. As for Robert Pattinson, well, there's something about the Batman that feels like it's a Halloween film because of how scary it is. So, and he terrified criminals so much that he thought that he was controlling crime, but it wasn't helping that he was scaring everyone. So, as for who's the scariest Batman, I'm gonna give it a tie between Christian Bale and Robert Pattinson, because even though Christian was only scary in Batman Begins, well, I'm still gonna give it to him for being the scariest. So, Robert Pattinson and Christian Bale are tied for scariest presence. As for who's the best fighter, well, that's a hard one because they were all great fighters, but here's my complaint. The only one I have to complain about is Christian Bale, because he was a good fighter, but something about his fighting style felt a bit, I don't know, it kind of, you ever seen one of those films where they're fighting, but you're thinking to yourself, it looks a little fake? Well, something about Christian Bale felt a little fake or something, like too robotic. That's just my opinion. Like, he was a great fighter, particularly against Bane and Ra's al Ghul, but his fighting style felt a bit robotic. Maybe a little fake, but a little robotic. For Michael Keaton, he was a good fighter, but I don't know, you didn't see him do that much fist fighting, but that might just be me. I haven't seen it in a while, so he was a great fighter, but I don't know, something about it didn't feel right. As for Ben Affleck, the warehouse scene answers that question if he was the best fighter. As for Robert Pattinson, managed to beat up those goons pretty well, and the fighting style, it looked very well done. And you even saw him flinch at some of the gunshots, which, that's a nice touch, because, I mean, even if you get shot by a bullet, or in my case, a Nerf gun, you'll still flinch. So I think he was a very good fighter. So as for who wins the award for the best fighter, well, it's going to be a tie between Ben Affleck and Robert Pattinson, because they were great fighters. Okay, let's put them right here. So, honorable mentions for Michael Keaton. He definitely was a good job with the voice. Now, those were the only things I could include, because I don't have the access to editing, so it's hard to include other things. But if I were to include voice, well, for Michael Keaton, for Michael Keaton, his voice was pretty good. For Christian Bale, that answers your question. The facepalm. It sounded like he had a sore throat. For Ben Affleck, the voice was definitely robotic, which is smart. But you didn't hear. But I think his voice was definitely very good. For Robert Pattinson, it was good. So, yeah, I'm just gonna include it. So, I think Michael Keaton, like, in my opinion, I think he has a very good voice. So does Ben Affleck and Robert Pattinson. So does Ben Affleck. Okay. Yeah, so, that's just my opinion. Yeah, let's look at this. Okay, let's look at the scoreboard. Okay, so that's the scoreboard. Yeah, something tells me that Robert Pattinson. Yeah, something tells me Twilight Boy wins that award. Now, that's just my opinion. Now, granted, I could include gadgets, but as I said, I haven't seen the films in a while, so it's hard for me to say. So, those are my thoughts on who is the best Batman in live action. Let me know down in the comments if you think differently. And let me know if I should also include a video in the future for the animated series, the video games, perhaps something else. And yeah, just let me know if there's anything else I can include. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell so you get notified of a video. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a nice day.